Imagine typing, build me a functioning inventory tracker.
Right.
And like 10 minutes later, you have working software that used to cost $50,000.
Right, and took 3 months to actually develop.
Exactly. No engineers, no project managers, just you describing a problem and a machine instantly architecting the solution.
It's wild. We are witnessing this massive transition from, static blueprints to breathing, interconnected digital cities.
Mm-hmm.
And the pace is just, well, it's frankly hard to comprehend. The friction between having an idea and deploying a functional application is basically evaporating.
Welcome to you, the listener, as we dive headfirst into this paradigm shift. Today, we are pulling crucial insights from a really fascinating piece of source material. It's called Architecting Ideas, the Base44 AI App Development Guide.
It's a great read.
Yeah, it really is. We are looking closely at Base44, which is this tool that fundamentally rewrites the rules of how software gets built. We're talking about allowing people to create deployable applications using nothing but plain English.
Right, and it represents a massive pivot in the tech sector. We are effectively moving from a world of code first to a world of ideas first.
Yeah.
For the last several decades, advanced coding languages and huge development teams were the strict gatekeepers of software creation.
Oh, absolutely. If you didn't speak the syntax or couldn't afford a team, you were out of luck.
Exactly. You simply couldn't build, but that gate is now wide open.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I want to make sure we truly grasp the mechanics of this platform before we start talking about the end user experience. The guide defines Base44 as an AI-powered app builder, but the analogy they lean on is calling it ChatGPT mixed with a software development platform.
Yeah, and it's a really potent visualization.
Yeah.
You have the conversational natural language interface of a modern LLM, but the output isn't a text summary.
Right, it's not writing an email for you.
No, the output is a functional, interactive piece of software.
And the scope of what it can output is vast. The guide lists dashboards, websites, internal business tools, productivity apps.
Client portals, automation systems, even startup prototypes.
Yeah, it's crazy. But let's pause and look under the hood here, because when I ask a standard AI for, like, a recipe, it's just predicting the next logical word based on its training data.
Right.
So how does an LLM architect an entire application with a front end and a back end?
Well, that is a core technical leap. Base44 doesn't just treat your prompt as a request for text. It treats it as a set of architectural parameters.
Okay.
The AI models powering these platforms have been trained on millions of open source repositories. So they actually understand the mathematical and structural patterns of what makes up, say, a client portal.
Ah, I see.
So when it generates an app, it isn't necessarily writing every single line of code from absolute scratch. It's instantly recognizing the pattern of your request and connecting pre-existing modular software components.
Like a secure login database or a navigation framework.
Exactly. And mapping them to a custom front-end interface that it just designs on the fly.
So it's less like traditional coding where you're laying every single brick of a house yourself.
Yeah.
And more like describing the house to a magical architect who instantly pulls all the prefabricated walls and floors together and builds the structure for you.
That's exactly it. What's fascinating here is why this matters on a fundamental human level. This technology completely shifts the human role in the creation process.
How so?
Well, throughout the history of computing, the human role has heavily relied on syntax memorization. You had to memorize the specific punctuation, the brackets, the API calls.
All the exact commands a compiler could actually read.
Right. But now, the human role is elevated to pure conceptualization. The machine handles the syntax. You only have to understand the logic of the problem you want to solve.
Wow. And that conceptualization leap is what drives the speed factor, right? The guide highlights that projects that traditionally took entire weeks can now be spun up in hours.
Yes, and going from weeks to hours changes the entire risk profile of innovation. If an idea only takes an afternoon to test, the penalty for failure drops to near zero.
You can actually afford to be wrong.
Exactly. It compresses the distance between having an idea in the shower and having a working prototype on your screen. When the cost of execution approaches zero, it encourages a volume of experimentation we have never seen before.
Okay, so we've established it's incredibly fast. But speed doesn't matter if the interface is terrifying to a beginner, like a traditional dev environment.
Oh, sure. Staring at an empty terminal screen is the quickest way to kill a non-technical person's ambition.
Right. So how does Base44 actually prevent that blank page paralysis?
Well, the getting started experience is specifically designed to eliminate that friction. When you log into a workspace, you are not staring at a blank coding editor.
Thank God.
Yeah, there is no command line waiting for you to stumble over a syntax error.
You just get a text box.
You just get a text box. You are prompted to describe the app in your own words.
And the guide offers some really highly specific prompt examples for this step. One of them is create a modern fitness tracking app with a dashboard, workout logging, and progress charts.
hmm Another good one they mention is build a task management app for a small marketing team.
So when you hit enter on a prompt, like the fitness tracker, what happens?
The AI just begins generating the structure. It maps out the layouts, builds the navigation menus, and creates the UI components.
But let me challenge that process for a second. When I hit enter, is it just rendering a flat, useless mock-up of a dashboard that looks pretty, or is it actually building the plumbing underneath?
It is absolutely building the plumbing. Depending on your request, Base44 sets up the backend logic.
Yeah.
It suggests and provisions a database schema to actually store the workout data.
Oh, wow.
It integrates authentication systems so users can securely log in. It creates functional forms for data entry and wires them to the database.
So it's establishing a full-stack environment.
Yes.
But what if the AI's first draft is completely wrong or just hallucinates a bizarre layout? Do you have to start over? Are you stuck doing forensic work on garbage code?
The answer is no. Yeah. And that is where the platform really distinguishes itself from older no-code tools. You don't dive into the code to fix it, and you don't throw it away.
Okay, then what do you do?
You iterate through conversation.
So you just talk to it like a colleague who maybe misunderstood an assignment.
Exactly. Once the first draft is rendered, you review it and provide conversational feedback. You type, make the design more modern, or add dark mode.
Wait, if I ask it to add dark mode, does it just change the front-end CSS, or does it add a toggle state in the database to remember the user's preference next time they log in?
Well, that depends entirely on how you instruct it, but the system is fully capable of doing both.
Right.
You can issue structural commands too, like create an admin dashboard or add a user role system. The AI updates the underlying node structure dynamically.
That's incredible.
The guide explicitly notes that using this tool feels less like programming and much more like directing a creative assistant.
Directing a creative assistant. It sounds like this essentially turns traditional software engineering into an editorial job. You aren't building, you're just proofreading and critiquing.
I wouldn't say it reduces software engineering to just proofreading, but it certainly shifts the developer's focus. Think about the friction of the old way.
Yeah.
Traditionally, building a robust app required an entire cast of characters. The source lists them out, front-end developers handling the client side, back-end developers architecting the databases,
Designers managing the user experience?
project managers coordinating sprints, and testing teams running QA.
That is a staggering payroll. You're funding an entire small business just to get a minimum viable product off the ground.
Right, which was an insurmountable barrier to entry for most people. AI tools dramatically lower that barrier. Solo creators, freelancers, and startups can now prototype and launch applications without needing years of technical experience.
So I have to ask the obvious question then. Does this mean coding is just completely dead?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, no. Traditional coding does not disappear completely. The guide makes this point very clear.
Okay.
What AI does is handle the massive amount of repetitive setup work automatically. It handles the boilerplate code, the standard API integrations, the basic CRU operations, create, read, update, delete.
The digital manual labor?
Yeah, the manual labor that human developers honestly find tedious anyway. By outsourcing that heavy lifting to the AI, human developers are freed up to work on truly complex, innovative logic.
The highly specialized algorithms that an AI can't deduce yet?
Right. But for the vast majority of standard business applications, the AI handles the architecture.
It feels like we are entering an era of prompt-driven architecture. Like the English language has effectively become a compiling programming language.
That is an excellent way to conceptualize it. The AI acts as a translation layer, taking standard English and compiling it down into functioning full-stack code.
But if English is the new compiling language and your only real job is giving instructions, then the instructions themselves become the single point of failure. How does someone ensure they are actually giving the right instructions to get a robust app?
It all comes down to the art of the prompt. The guide stresses that prompt quality is the most critical skill a user can develop here. Specificity dictates the probability of success.
Let's use an analogy here. It's like going to a restaurant and just telling the chef, make me food.
Yeah, you'll get something, but who knows what.
Exactly. Versus asking for a medium rare steak with a peppercorn reduction. Specificity dictates the quality of the result.
The mechanism is identical with AI app builders. The source provides a perfect contrast for this. A vague prompt would be simply typing, build a website.
The make me food approach.
Yeah, it gives the AI almost zero constraints, so it will output the most statistically average layout it can find.
Sure.
Contrast that with the specific prompt the guide suggests. Build a clean, modern portfolio website for a freelance video editor with a dark theme, testimonial section, pricing page, and contact form.
The difference in the required back-end architecture between those two prompts is massive.
Absolutely. The specificity gives the AI concrete architectural guardrails. It understands the functional requirements, like needing a secure database for the contact form.
Right.
It understands the design system required by clean, modern, dark theme. And by mentioning a pricing page, it prepares the structural foundation for eventual payment integrations,
You're handing the AI a detailed project brief instead of a vague wish.
which drastically improves the underlying code it generates.
Okay, so you have your detailed project brief, you understand the need for specificity, and you're staring at the text box. What should an absolute beginner actually try to build first?
This raises an important question, because the immediate temptation is to try and build a competitor to a massive global platform.
Right, like building the next massive marketplace on day one.
Exactly, and the guide advises strongly against this. The best strategy is starting simple.
You don't ask the magical architect to build a skyscraper when you're still learning how to describe a shed.
That's a great way to put it. You start by building a small, contained tool that solves one specific problem well. The source lists a few highly effective beginner projects:
Like what?
personal dashboards, habit trackers, AI content planners, CRM systems, inventory trackers, and budgeting apps. They also suggest team management tools or appointment booking systems.
A habit tracker or a budgeting app makes perfect sense. The stakes are incredibly low. It's just your own data.
Right, you aren't managing third-party API keys or complex user permissions.
It allows you to learn how the AI handles basic database operations without the pressure of a live user base finding bugs in your logic.
And working on those smaller projects reinforces the most critical behavior. The guide outlines the necessity of iteration.
The conversational refinement we talked about earlier?
Yes, AI-generated applications improve exclusively through that iterative feedback loop. The guide explicitly states that professional users rarely, if ever, accept the version 1 output. They constantly iterate.
That should be a massive relief for anyone listening who feels intimidated by this. You do not have to write the perfect, all-encompassing prompt on your first try.
The initial prompt merely pours the foundation. The subsequent conversation is where the actual architecture is refined and perfected.
So what does this all mean? When we zoom out from the specific prompts in the interface and look at the broader implications, where does this leave the tech landscape?
It means we are crossing a macro-level threshold in technology. Tools like Base44 represent a fundamental transition from manually coding software to actively collaborating with AI systems to generate it.
Wow.
In the very near future, millions of individuals who possess deep domain expertise but zero programming knowledge will be building robust digital tools and launching businesses. The source emphasizes that we are still in the absolute infancy of this transition.
The infancy. To you listening right now, consider your own field. Whether you are a supply chain expert who needs an inventory tool, a freelancer automating client onboarding, or an entrepreneur with a backlog of ideas, software creation is more accessible to you today than at any point in human history. The defining shift of the next decade is not about the software itself, it is about who gets to build it.
But that widespread democratization introduces a profound paradox, and it is a concept I think listeners should really mull over.
It's that.
If anyone, regardless of technical background or capital, can manifest complex software simply by describing it to an AI, what happens to the intrinsic value of the software itself?
Oh, wow. That fundamentally changes the economics of the industry.
In a landscape where the technical execution is instantaneous and practically free, will the originality of your ideas become the only true currency left in tech?
Execution becomes a cheap commodity, but vision becomes the premium asset. The magical architect is available to everyone now. The real differentiator is whether you actually know what kind of structure is worth building in the first place.
The barrier to entry has been removed. The tools are waiting. The rest is entirely up to the clarity of your ideas.
A brilliant place to leave it. That wraps up today's deep dive into Base44 and the rapidly evolving architecture of AI app building. Take those ideas, start directing your creative assistant, and we will catch you on the next one.